Hey everyone, and welcome back. I'm glad you're joining me today. My name is Hosaname, and this is Curious Reads, where I walk you through some of the wildest, weirdest, or just plain fascinating stories from classic books. Today I want to take you into the world of Don Quixote, that bizarre, brilliant, centuries-old story about chasing dreams, losing your grip on reality, and why maybe, just maybe, that's not always the worst thing. So, where do we start? Picture a little village in central Spain. There's this middle-aged guy named Alonso Quijano. Now, Alonso is not some mighty nobleman or dashing hero. He's just a regular, a bit bored, maybe a bit lonely. But he's got one giant obsession: books about knights and chivalry. You know the type: damsels in distress, giants to slay, brave heroes upholding truth, and all that. It all starts so simply, but he reads and reads until those stories just sort of take over his mind. Seriously, think about binge watching your favorite fantasy show until you actually start planning your life like you're about to ride into battle. That's where Alonso ends up. The line between story and reality blurs so completely that he wakes up one day and decides, okay, enough is enough. The world needs one more night. But he's not really prepared, and that's where things get interesting. He digs up some old rusty armor, literally tapes together a helmet. He renames himself Don Quixote de la Mancha. Then he scoops up his horse. Well, horse might be generous. Rocinante is basically an elderly farm horse who's seen better days. But Don Quixote is sure this is his noble steed. Every knight needs a lady, right? So he picks a peasant woman from the next town over, Aldonza Lorenzo, and gives her a fancy new name, Dulcinea del Toboso. She has no idea, by the way. But hey, every epic needs its muse. Don Quixote is off, out into the world. He's ready to save the day, defeat evil, and live grand adventures. Only the world around him hasn't agreed to the script. Early on, there's one scene that's become basically legendary. He sees a bunch of windmills in the distance and genuinely believes they're giants. So what does he do? He charges straight at them with his lance. You can guess how it goes. His spear gets stuck, the windmill spins around, and he's thrown off his horse. But to Don Quixote, it's not over. He insists that a sneaky magician is to blame for turning giants into windmills at the last second. There's this wild optimism in everything he does, but it's also almost heartbreaking. Don Quixote just keeps finding adventures wherever he looks, even if they exist only in his imagination. People humiliate him, beat him up, laugh at him, but he just keeps going, convinced he's on the greatest quest ever. After his first clumsy disaster, his friends, especially a village priest and a barber, get worried. They think his books are rotting his brain, so they stage a little intervention. They burn most of his chivalry books, hoping he'll finally get back to normalcy. Instead, Don Quixote is convinced it's the work of evil enchanters, of course. Around this time, he ropes in a squire, Sancho Panza. Sancho is a simple, skeptical, but kind-hearted farmer who mainly agrees to tag along because Don Quixote promises him wild rewards. One day, Sancho will be the governor of his own island. Sancho's got this childlike hope mixed with a real-world, down-to-earth skepticism, which gives their dynamic such warmth. He knows his boss is delusional, but he kind of enjoys the ride anyway. Over the next chunk of the story, Don Quixote and Sancho roam across the countryside, hunting for glory. What unfolds is a series of completely absurd adventures. Sometimes he tries to right the tiniest wrongs. Sometimes he provokes the innocent or gets involved in quarrels that really aren't his business. He frees convicts and believes he's saved wrongly accused men, only for the men to rob and beat him just minutes later. He attacks a group of monks he thinks are evil sorcerers, helps reunite parted lovers, and steals a barber's metal basin, convinced it's the enchanted helmet of a gallant knight. But here's the thing. No matter how ridiculous the situation, Don Quixote almost always finds a way to twist reality into something noble. He refuses to see the world as it is, insisting on seeing magic, adventure, and higher purpose everywhere. Eventually, his oddball adventures get enough attention that the people around him get involved. Not always kindly. There's a famous sequence where Don Quixote, Sancho, a barber, the priest, and a bunch of people end up at an inn. Here, the schemes get layered. A woman named Dorotea pretends to be a princess to trick Don Quixote into coming home. Priests, barbers, and just about every local character jumps in to pull him back into the real world, by deception if necessary. It's at the inn that some of Don Quixote's illusions take their biggest hits, and sometimes the biggest laughs. There's one memorable bit where he fights with wineskins, convinced they're actual giants. He's brought home in a large wooden cage, persuaded that it's all some spell meant to test his virtue. And for a while, he's persuaded to take a break. But you can probably guess, Don Quixote isn't finished yet. The legend of his mad adventures spreads. Soon, his story's so famous that people want to see him in action. A duke and a duchess take him and Sancho in, and just for sport, they set up a series of staged fake adventures to toy with them. There's a flying wooden horse, a staged rescue mission, and fake wizards all designed to keep Don Quixote's imagination fired up. Sancho even finally gets his promised governorship, but it's just a prank played on him by the duke and duchess. Turns out being governor is less about glory, more about dealing with angry townsfolk, paperwork, and, well, chaos. After about 10 days, Sancho gives up the job, realizing he prefers being a regular guy to living out a farce. Throughout, Sancho and Don Quixote's relationship grows deeper. Sancho begins by thinking Don Quixote is hopelessly crazy, but over time he starts to buy into the magic too. There's a warmth and loyalty there that just works. They're like the original odd couple, two people who shouldn't fit together but somehow absolutely do. Eventually, Don Quixote's wild journey starts running out of steam. Back home, some people are desperate to cure him, while others are happy to let him keep dreaming. His final adventure comes when he faces a mysterious opponent, the Knight of the White Moon. This challenger is actually a young man from his hometown in disguise, and the terms are high stakes. If Don Quixote loses, he has to give up being a knight for a year. After a dramatic battle, by which I mean a pretty clumsy joust on a beach, Don Quixote loses, and he's true to his word. He puts away his lance, his dreams of heroism, and returns to life as Alonso Quijano. It's there, back in his bed at home, that reality comes crashing down for good. As Don Quixote falls ill, his illusions fade. In his last days, he finally admits the truth about his adventures. He apologizes to his friends and family, renounces his chivalric ideals, and passes away, with Sancho by his side, heartbroken but grateful for the journey. What always strikes me about Don Quixote is how much of it is about hope. Hope in the face of ridicule. Hope when things are plain grim. Don Quixote sees a world that isn't there, and sometimes that vision is almost more real, more colorful, than the world around him. Beneath all the slapstick, the pratfalls, the misunderstandings, there's a deep affection for dreaming big, even if you crash into a windmill along the way. The friendship between Sancho and Don Quixote is truly heartfelt, despite all the mockery they face. There's a kind of courage there. Maybe not the kind with swords and dragons, but the courage to keep seeing the world not as it is, but as it could be. Don Quixote is hilarious for sure, but it's also a little bit tragic. It reminds us how precious and how fragile our dreams are. It asks us who's really mad, the person who lives in their illusions or the world that doesn't believe in them at all. So that's the story. From a lonely room with too many books to a life on horseback, chasing windmills. Don Quixote's adventure is a wild ride, full of laughs, a little danger, some heartbreak, and a whole lot of heart. And maybe after listening, you'll find yourself spotting a windmill or two in your own world and wondering if they're giants after all. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this quick trip into the wonderfully weird world of Don Quixote. Until next time, keep reading and keep dreaming.